Don't you even think about betting Major League Baseball tonight without hearing the analysis we have coming your way. Baltimore, Kansas City, Oakland, Cleveland, Rays, Yankees, Blue Jays, Padres, all those games and more. Getting you some winners here on the WagerTalk TV YouTube channel. And let's start right at the top with a barking dog. And my man Brian Leonard knows them better than anyone. Kansas City taking on Baltimore. We got a nice shopping around like plus 125. You can get on Kansas City. You like that side, Brian. Tell us why.
Yeah, Dean Kramer won 13 games for the Birds last year, but his final numbers show he was fortunate to do so. In 172 and two-thirds innings work, he only struck out 157 batters and had a 131 whip. His ERA was 4.12. Now this season, that negative regression is already showing a 4.96 ERA after 16 and a third innings of work. And according to Savant, his pitching run value is in the 9th percentile, with his fastball coming in the 4th percentile. He's allowing a barrel percentage of 14.3. His excellent walk rate of 2.8 doesn't jive with his previous career numbers. So he's been getting away with some pretty good stuff this year, but it hasn't shown. And with that 2.8, it isn't going to continue. He's got a problem with walks. He's had one his entire career, and I think that's going to come back and haunt him here. That's likely where the trouble going forward. Alex March struggled in his rookie season in 2023, but showed enough to keep him in the 2024 rotation. His pitching run value is in the 72nd percentile, and his off-speed pitches have been excellent in the 95th percentile. He's a starter on the ascent right now and a bargain price in this matchup. The Royals were a bad team last year, but they've already helped themselves in the offseason, especially from some starting pitchers, bringing in some guys that nobody else wanted, guys that don't have major strikeout advantages, but they are good pitchers, and they pitch very well in this stadium, a stadium that is not very good for home run hitting. Very similar to Baltimore right now in left field, where Baltimore, you really got to lay into one to get it out of left field. I think this is a very similar situation here. I like the Kansas City side. Baltimore, to me, is a little bit overrated, even though I picked them to go over on their season win total. Kansas City at home catching this number in this pitching matchup, which I have a slight edge here for Kansas City, gives us good value on the Royals, and we'll take them as an underdog here.
Yeah, and early in the season, it's going to be hard, Brian, not to be overrated when you lead the league with 30 home runs. You know what I mean? Everybody loves the long ball, so people just look at that and say, oh, set it and forget it. I also think that's why you're seeing the total the way it is. I mean, if you try and bet Baltimore team totals over, you're getting juiced out the wazoo on that. So, I love trying to find a way. And if Kremer does falter on the mound and Kansas City can keep up with this offense, or we can get a nice start out of Marsh, I think Kansas City first five could also be a potential decent look there. Just take the bullpens out of it. So that's maybe the way that I would be looking at it. Hop below in the comments and let us know how you're betting that one. But Brian, with a dog barking out of the gate, if you like plus money, you came to the right place. Hit that like button. Steve Merril, I see you're also with us, brother, and you want to talk decent matchup here too. Like Tampa Bay Rays, a decent start to the season, 2 games over 500. They're opposing the Yankees. The funny thing to me in this one, Steve, is that the Yankees, while they were screaming, their guy Aaron Judge was like ice cold. He finally did a little something with that double that he had yesterday. But before that, Judge was kind of an afterthought. So any thoughts as you head on into this, other than the slow start for him, but obviously about this game? How are you potentially betting it, Tampa Bay and the Yankees here?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this game for a couple reasons. One of them is what you mentioned, Aaron Judge, and the other one is that Tampa bullpen. We'll get to that in a moment. But, last year, the last several years, when Judge has gotten injured, and that will happen, by the way, probably sometime before June is my prediction, the Yankees have been a pure underplay. They live and die by the long ball, and he's a big part of that. So not surprisingly, there's been some low-scoring games this season for the Yankees as well. And this is a team that started the season going under, and I believe 10 of their first 13 games, they were 10-3 under, but now they've gone over 4 of their last 5. And as you mentioned, maybe Judge is starting to heat up. So it's something to keep an eye on. Yeah. But they live and die by the long ball. They don't produce a lot of hits. They did get 11 last night against Toronto. 2 days ago. They traveled back home with rest yesterday, so they're back at home. Meanwhile, D-backs are traveling without rest, and that is a concern for that bullpen. which has a 6.0 ERA this year and an even worse 6 ERA in their 6 road games. And their whip is awful also, 1.6, 1.8 away. And I bring that up because just like the Houston Astros, who are off to a terrible start, the Astros and the Rays have really been an American League dominant team for the last few seasons, largely because of the strong bullpen. So the question becomes, is this 20-game sample relevant of what's going to happen the next 142 games? Or do we get value maybe with Tampa now because of the slow start in the bullpen? This is still a team, despite having a 6 earned run average in the bullpen this year in 81 innings, is 11-9 straight up. And they have gone over in 12 of their 20 games because of that bullpen. My initial thought with the Yankees and with Judge Cole would be to look for the under, but the early money bumped this down from 9 to 8.5. So I'm starting to think we actually might be getting some value now with the over 8.5. It's going to be largely dependent if Judge is heating up. But I think Judge will start getting some home runs. We'll get some more extra base hits. And I also am a little leery of that Tampa bullpen. So I think the safest play here is the Yankees minus 170 money line. You can obviously get that down a bit on the run line and get it down to plus money at plus 115. The best option, I think, is half a unit each and play a -1 run line. If your book doesn't offer a -1, you can make it by playing half on the money line, half on the 1.5 run line. Yankees -1 would be my preferred play in this game.
Breaking it up, getting the Yankees laying the run. Hop below in the comments and let us know how you're going to be betting that one. One of the postponed game guys that's going here in just a few moments, so I'll just brush over it, was that Miami and Chicago game. The chat is trying to hop on Chicago right this moment. They're all betting them. The play for me that I gave out yesterday before things kind of change. I don't know how deep puck is going to go in that game. So I know it's starting here in a few moments. So all I'm going to say is if you can get outs recorded, AJ Puck under the 14.5 was the play I really liked yesterday. I think it still stands up today. And if the chat you're loving Chicago kind of correlates with getting that pitcher out of there nice and early. But let's talk about, guys, a game that folks can get to this evening, and it's the one that goes at 8:15, Brewers and St. Louis. We got the chat saying Brew Crew time. Brian, you agreeing with the chat?
Let me take a look. It wasn't one of the games that I played today.
All good.
I like the Peralta. I think the line has come down. It opened at 130, and I'm seeing as low as 111 and 110. If I was to play the game, I'd play Milwaukee with Peralta. He's been just terrific so far. Kyle Gibson's a guy who's a journeyman. I prefer the Milwaukee side, but sharp money came in and bet St. Louis overnight. So somebody thinks they know something. We will see. A lot of times the line moves don't work out, but I still think there's going at this number. The only way I could play this would be the Brewers with Peralta.
Yeah, sometimes the line moves, especially in Major League Baseball, when you have these 3-game series, 4-game series. Sometimes it's just air. Sometimes it makes a heck of a lot of sense. That one to me kind of has me scratching my head a little bit for some of those reasons that Brian mentioned. Any thoughts on that matchup, Milwaukee and St. Louis? And as far as it goes, as the odds are concerned, as Brian said, 130, we're seeing almost down to -110 for the Brew Crew. So now people want to be sweeping in at that better price. Does that make sense to you, Steve?
What's interesting about Milwaukee is they've been fantastic offensively this year, batting almost 280 as a team. In fact, they'd gone over 9 straight games until that 1-0 game on Wednesday to finish up the homestand against San Diego. So you got to wonder if maybe that was a sign that offense is starting to cool off. Now they travel with rest, and we have seen some sharp money come in on the under. So I would actually lean under in this one. Both teams have had strong bullpens, but the Cardinal offense has been weak. 2 strong bullpens, weak Cardinal offense. And if that Brewer offense is starting to regress, which I think they're due to do so, just 6 and 3 hits their last 2 games, could be some undervalue with Milwaukee here in the near future starting tonight.
So we have City in the Bay on our YouTube Shorts chat. Folks, they love their parlays, guys. So we have to talk about them even if we're not the ones betting them here. He says the City parlay special for him, Reds, Houston, Orioles. I know the team that Brian thinks is going to sell that parlay is the Royals taking down the O's. Steve, out of those 3, you agree with Brian that maybe it's going to be the Royals that do them in on that one, or does something else stand out to you, Reds, Houston, or the Orioles as the one that's going to bust that parlay up?
I have a free play on my page right now on the Orioles-Royals game for Friday night at WagerTalk.com. So I invite everybody to go to see if I agree or disagree. So check out Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com for that free Orioles-Royals play. And I will point out, as we're doing the show live at 2 o'clock Eastern here on Friday, WagerTalk screen has been lighting up with some sharp money coming in on the Reds. So the Reds might be a decent part of that parlay. And I do have a free play on that Orioles-Royals game on my page right now.
Yeah, and check out the links in the description below. You can find those free play videos that these guys are throwing in around the clock here at Wager Talk. So make sure you hit that little bell so you never miss any of those ones. All right, guys, let's get back to some of these games that you had slated, and you continue hopping in the chat here. But, things that we love putting stamps on. People love their best bets here. So, Brian, I'm going to throw it right back to you because you are rocking solid Cleveland gear, whether it be throwback or not, but they're facing the Oakland A's. And the Oakland A's have been a sneaky team this year. I mean, I know we keep talking about it, but it is worth mentioning. You love your dogs, Brian, and some way, somehow, we're making a case here at plus 150 for the Oakland A's side. Why are we liking this one, Brian?
They played each other early in the season. They started the season together. Cleveland going to Oakland. And Cleveland had the better of the series, and they've had the better of the record so far this year. But this Oakland team continues players with a lot of heart. They just brought their leadoff hitter back up from the minors, and not only is he stealing bases, he's hitting home runs. He's hit 2 home runs the last couple of games. So this is an Oakland team that I think continues to stay under the radar. Joe Boyle's going today, and he was pounded in his season debut by the Red Sox, no doubt about it, allowing 7 earned runs in 2.2 innings. But take a look at his last 2 starts. They were very good with a combined single earned run in 10 innings of work against the Tigers and the Nationals. Now, granted, the Tigers and the Nationals not the greatest hitting teams, but still, to be able to go 10 innings, only give up 1 combined run in those 2 games tells us that Boyle may be a team that's on the upsurge. I've mentioned in the past that I play fantasy baseball. A lot of the guys that I follow really think he could have a monster year if he could just keep his control down a little bit. He's walked a lot of batters in the past, but last year in 3 starts he had a 1.69 ERA, 0.81 WHIP. So as again, it all comes down to control with Boyle. I know Cleveland's a team that takes a lot of pitches, so the matchup probably isn't the best for him. But if he can keep those walk rates low, I think he's got an excellent chance to succeed. And considering the team he plays on, we're going to get some really good paying numbers, which we do have today when they go to Cleveland. When you take a look at what he's done so far, he's kept the opposition off balance. His fastball velocity is in the 87th percentile, then 81 exit velocity percentile, so he's not giving up a lot of hard hit balls. He's in the 83rd percentile in barrel percentage, so he's not giving up the barrels, and also in that same 83% in hard hit percentage. So anytime you can get a pitcher who has strikeout ability that's not walking anybody and the opposition can't hit the ball hard against them in this price range, that's what I'm looking for. Tristan McKenzie, unfortunately, has been pitching injured now for 2 seasons. He's been having elbow problems, is trying to work his way through it without surgery. But there was an article yesterday that came out about it, and this is probably his biggest start of the season, which is a shame because if you're a Cleveland fan, he was one of the guys that we were really expecting to bounce back this year, and it just hasn't shown it. If you take a look at his Savant numbers, his pitching run value is in the 6th percentile. In 3 starts this season, he's gone 3.1, 5.2 in 4 innings with 12 walks and only 5 strikeouts. This is a guy that was the Indians' major guy in the minor leagues for a few years. He came up and he pitched great. And now with the Guardians, Cleveland changed the name, obviously. He has not pitched nearly as well, and he's just not healthy. The back of the Guardians' bullpen has been outstanding, no doubt about it. But I expect the long relievers to be involved here. I don't think McKenzie's going to go very far in this game. He hasn't really been stretched out. And as I said, 3 1/4 or 3 1/3, 5 2/3, and 4 innings. He just hasn't thrown many pitches this year because he's just not being effective. This is a situation where I think, in fact, I'm pretty sure that the Oakland starting pitcher is the better pitcher in this game. And if you're able to get them as a nice underdog, which we are, I will take Oakland as a nice underdog pricer.
Yeah, and I think people are waiting with bated breath for the other shoe to drop on Oakland. And I think probably we all agree that's likely going to happen at some point, and it's probably likely going to happen at some point over this next 10-game stretch because they're starting a 10-game road trip. So, I'm not really interested in finding that or catching that falling knife, so to speak, Steve, at the beginning of the road trip. I think maybe we find our spots in here. And also at only minus 140, I hear Brian on that breakdown. On the road, I know it's a small sample size, but 5-1 on the run line, minus 140. Give me that extra run and a half of insurance, and then I'll sprinkle a little bit on the money line with Brian. That could be a way to attack it as well. Hop below in the comments and let us know if you're betting that game. You're riding with Brian, the dog whisperer. We want to hear from you below there in the comments. Steve has a best bet coming up here in the Padres game. But first, let's swing it back to the chat, Steve, because your Washington Nationals are getting so much love here today, man. Verlander finally back on the mound for the Astros. Is it as simple as everybody in the chat is saying? Verlander first start back, fade him. Washington plus 130. Line it up. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I still think about what Tokyo Brandon said the other day on WagerTalk today, that the Nationals remain a good team over bet because they're a dog. We're getting them in around the 3.5 range. They usually bat an extra time being the dog. Even as a home dog here, they should get up in the bottom of the ninth. But still, who would have thought the Nationals would have a better record right now than the Houston Astros? And that's not because the Nats are doing well. They're only 8-10 straight up. Once again, I go back to that Houston bullpen. Now, the bullpen is getting better. It's down to 5.47 ERA, 1.44 whip. And they do still have some talent in that bullpen. But this is a team that's off to a 6-14 start. The majority of those losses up until that Atlanta series had been as a favorite. They took 3 dog losses against Atlanta. Just don't know what to do with Houston right now. I'd be very careful with them. If anything, I'd probably look to play the game over if you're worried about Verlander. Then just play the game over because Washington has shown the ability to hit, but they have absolutely no pitching whatsoever. Over 8's probably a fairly cheap number if he does struggle.
Yeah, it's Brian, or that's Steve Merril. Check him out, wt.buzz/SM. Bri, we have Robert Kane joining us on the YouTube short stream, and I know you know your Guardians well. He's asking, talk about trying to find a needle in a haystack. I love getting some plus money, but he's asking about the MVP market. And after the brothers go back-to-back and get some homer, the Nailers brothers, he's asking any value, one of the most popular terms in sports betting, value, on Josh Naylor MVP. We're looking at like a plus 10,000. So a $10 bet wins you $1,000. Any thoughts on the MVP market as a whole? And specifically, do we do a little sprinkle here on Naylor?
Well, he may win the team MVP, but because he plays for Cleveland, a team who is going to be lucky to win half their ball games this year, they're not in a big market. You're not going to win the MVP. The MVP is going to go to somebody who plays in the big market, or if Mike Trout stays healthy all year, that would be something. But no, when was the last time Cleveland had an MVP? Now they've had Cy Young winners, but I don't think I'm 62, and in my lifetime, I don't believe they've had an MVP from a hitting standpoint. I don't think it's going to happen, although I really like Naylor as a player, and he's the heart of the team, and I love him. But yeah, I'm not putting my money on him.
Fun players do not always equate to, especially in markets like that, MVP tickets. But my Venmo is at Newbie Talks. If you want to send me that $10 that we would place on Naylor, I'll book it. If you want to do it that way. I'm just kidding. Of course, don't have the FCC come knocking at my door asking, hey, what are you soliciting bets on here? So.
Yeah, I think that might be more so. The FBI might be who you have to worry about knocking on your door more than the FCC. You had the first letter right.
FTC, FBI, CIA, all of them are saying, what are we doing here, guys? Steve, best bet time for you, and then we'll swing back, talk some more about what we have going here in the chat. But you wanted to talk about this Blue Jays and Padres game. Let's chop this 1.5. What's the first 5 wager in that one, Steve?
Fun game to talk about here. We're going to get to a late night free play for you in this Toronto-San Diego game in just a moment. Quick reminder, NBA playoffs, play-in games finish up tonight. The real playoffs start tomorrow on Saturday. I have consistently won money for almost 30 years in the NBA. I started in 1996, and the same angles continue to work. 63% last year in the NBA playoffs, and I have a strong game one best bet ready for Saturday right now, and also a 3-for-1 Friday night baseball special, and a bonus free play in that Orioles-Royals game on my page right now. So check it out. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. 3 best bets for Friday baseball and advanced NBA playoff selection. Hey, you might want to consider that buy 7, get 3 days free, a 10-day special for less than $10 a day, but it expires this weekend, so you got to get on board. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. All right, let's look at a free play in the San Diego-Toronto game. Really fun game to talk about. We have 2 up-and-coming youngsters here. Rodriguez for Toronto just made his debut. The Cuban Rodriguez pitched okay. He looked all right. They got the win. He didn't get the win, but they got the win against Colorado on the 13th back on last Saturday. And this is the guy that's had very limited work in the pros. They didn't keep him long in MLB, or MILB, the minor leagues. He started just 2 games down there, 6 innings pitched. He had 10 strikeouts, didn't give up an earned run, .6 whip. He's got the real deal. He's the real deal, in my opinion. Not so for Matt Waldron, who is a little bit of a journeyman already. He was the 550th pick by Brian Leonard's Cleveland Indians. And yes, they were the Cleveland Indians because it was 2019 when they took him in round 18. He got called up from Brian's favorite minor league team, the El Paso Chihuahuas, and he is a knuckleballer. So this will be a fun game to watch tonight, but he's been mediocre at best. This guy made 79 career appearances in the minors, 64 starts, 5.5 ERA in the minors. That would equate to like over a 6 in the pros. The reason he's going is because Darvish is on the IL. He's the number 5 starter. They've got to start him tonight. Now, he has been in good current form. He's given up 1 earned run in each of his last 2 starts against the Giants and Dodgers. And current form for knuckleballers is extremely important. But he gave up 9 hits and 4 runs in just 4 innings in his debut back on April 1st this season. And I look for him to struggle. Toronto's bullpen has been a problem, though, this season. And their offense on the road has been below 200 batting average. Not a good offense, not a good bullpen. So let's chop it in half and play the first 5, and we're actually getting the same price. The full game is -110, and because of that, we're getting the same price in the first half, -110, although some of the sharper books are -115. So I think this is the way to go. 2 young pitchers, Rodriguez, tremendous talent upside compared to Waldron. So let's play the first 5 inning Toronto Blue Jays -110. And also the Padres are returning home off a road trip with rest. As Jeff Michaels pointed out last year, and I keep talking about it, home dogs off a road trip with rest or negative play. I know this game's a pick 'em, but I think they kind of qualify as a home dog here. Lots of reasons to like Toronto first 5 innings tonight.
The Blue Jays on the first 5. That's the best bet for Steve Merril. And we're looking at the A's, the best bet for my man, Brian Leonard. Back to the chat here, guys. This is more of an overarching question than a specific game question. It's just, what are the panel's thoughts on playing team total runs over to the either the over or the under? For me, I love, if I'm handicapping a game, being able to chop it in half and isolate what I think one team is going to do. Now, I think obviously you have to factor in how it is going against pitchers. But Brian, I'm wondering for you, how do you attack that? Is that something you typically are offering to your clients? Is it something you ever sprinkle on yourself? As far as team totals specifically are concerned, how do you handicap those?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. And anytime you can get an advantage in that regard, for example, if I like a team and I also like the over, I will play the team total over if I get a little bit better number in that regard. For example, there was another game I was looking at today, was the White Sox were playing at Philadelphia. I really liked both starters in this game. Crochet going on the road, he did struggle. He didn't really struggle last time out, but he did give up some runs. But I think he still had like a 10-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. But Chicago's offense, and we've talked about this in the past, is bad. They did get one of their big bats back, but I could see, Philadelphia is a good hitting ballpark. The line opened, the total opened 8.5 under 20. Now it's down to 7.5 under 20. I agree with that. So maybe instead of playing the under 7.5, maybe we play Chicago White Sox under. The team total right now on that, let's see, is 3.5 under 135. So the White Sox would have to get 4 runs in order for you to lose this bet. I don't see the White Sox doing it. I think it's going to be a tightly contested, low-scoring game. that would be a way that you could play the under there without having to worry about Philadelphia, which is a very good hitting team, scoring a lot of runs here. So, I've got no problem playing it. It's just like any other sport. The team totals are a way to go if you can get them down at a good number.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the point at the end. Is it all depends on if the price can end up making sense for you. The one thing that concerns me, and I'm glad you brought up the Phillies, so I didn't have to, because I did want to at least touch upon that game. But I'm wearing my Embiid shirt today, so I'm embracing the full homerism today, guys. No, this isn't a Bob Ross shirt, though it might look like that. It is Joel Embiid's silhouette there. But my only concern is Turnbull, and this is probably ends up being more anecdotal than anything because turnover on teams year to year, but 0-3 against the Chicago White Sox in his 5 career starts. He's given them up almost 7 earned runs. And again, I get it. Different pitchers, different ballparks, different hitters. That's just the only thing that maybe gives me pause a little bit on jumping all in with the Phillies here today. Any thoughts on that game, Steve, or would you like to circle back as far as team total runs are concerned and how you attack that? I thought Brian hit on that really well.
Yeah, the White Sox are now 3-15 on the season. Even the worst team in the league is going to win 50 games. The A's got exactly 50 last year, so they obviously tested that theory, but the Oakland train wreck last year was about as bad as you could have, and they still got to 50. So that means the White Sox will win at least 47 more games at some point. But we often see these come in clumps, right? And we saw Oakland do that the last couple of weeks. They went on that little bit of a run. I still recall a few years ago when the Orioles were the worst team in the league, like 3 years ago. They go into Houston, who was the best team. They beat them 3 straight. It was like a 10 or 12 to 1 payout had you played the 3 games on the money line. So the White Sox are not in good current form. As is often the case, it's offense. They've scored 2 runs or less now in 5 of the last 6 games. And they've had single-digit hits every time. In fact, they've had 6 hits or less in 5 of those 6. So I got to see some more offense. Until I do, it's under, team totals under. But at some point when Chicago starts hitting the ball a little bit better, don't be afraid to jump on that short-term bandwagon because they will get some wins at some point this season.
Yep. Yeah, no, spot on. I couldn't agree more. Guys, before we shut things down here, we do have some other questions coming in here. One specifically is asking about Seattle at a short price this evening. That one goes at 8:40. It's Hancock and Hudson on the mound. And I always love when people bring up the highest total on the board. I always like looking at that. We have seen under money come in on that 11.5, but Colorado, that nice thin air. You always have to talk totals in that one. So any thoughts, Bry? Hancock, Hudson in Seattle and Colorado. They're asking Seattle at the short price, maybe to look for them, but anything else stand out to you there? Because the short price is actually getting a little bit shorter in the marketplace. I think you're muted there, Brian. I wasn't sure if it was me or if it was my man Brian that was muted. It was probably the cat jumping on.
That's the problem when you have a cat.
I was going to say, blame the cat. Talk about the barking dog. The meowing cats
even
are out of control.
Losses, it's a cat's fault. But when I look at the weather in this game, the weather is a concern. If I can get to my correct, there we go. Okay. Right now they're going to have 69% rain. And actually, since it's a night game, they're showing at 11:40 p.m., 79% of snow. So that is something we don't normally have to look at, is snow in the forecast. But that's what we're having here. When you take a look at both these pitchers, neither one of them are guys that are known in their young careers as being able to really shut down the opposition. So when you see something like that, you know that the weather's going to be a factor, and that is what the problem is there. But Hancock's a young guy. He hasn't had a lot of starts. Pitching him in Colorado, normally guys like that don't fare very well, but the weather conditions could be a concern here. Don't want Colorado. They're one of the worst teams in baseball, although they do play a whole lot better at home than they do on the road. And if you are going to play them as a nice underdog, playing them at home is the way to go. But I don't really have much on this one, and who even knows if it becomes an official game with the weather concerns.
Yeah, good point. As far as any of the games on the board, that's the one to definitely look. Temperatures in the 40s, rain, and I mean it's mid to late April, and we're talking about snow. This is terrific stuff, Steve. Any thoughts on that one, or any other game you wanted to isolate here on the board before we shut things down, get folks out of here for the weekend? Steve Merril, you'll get the final word.
Well, I was going to say, in general, cold weather, ball doesn't travel as well. It also makes, I think, hitting a little more difficult. That Colorado game, we've seen the total go from 11.5 down to 10.5. That's a very low total for Coors Field. It very rarely ever gets in the 10 range. Seattle's been an ice-cold offensive team all season. But keep in mind, Seattle's home numbers are really bad. It's not a pitcher-friendly, hitter-friendly park. Now they're in the most hitter-friendly park. So game, probably stay away from that one. I think there's a lot of good games on the board heading into this week, and it'll be some great weekend series. But I do think that Houston-Washington game is one to keep an eye on for several reasons. I want to see how Verlander looks. I want to see how that bullpen continues to progress. And I want to see if my Nationals maybe could be an underrated team at 8-10 this season. Oakland and Washington both have been winning some games, whereas the White Sox and recently the Rockies have not. So in general, I don't like to back bad teams, but, Oakland and Washington have made some money at some points this season.
That's Steve Merril, Brian Leonard as well. You can find them both over at WagerTalk.com. But before you go over there, make sure you throw us a like on the way out here for these guys breaking down the slate for you. We appreciate whether you're tuning in live with us or watching on the replay. And if you're watching on the replay, you don't have to go very far to keep getting all that info you need to bet on all the sports you love. That's right. You can check out the video on your screen right now and keep on cashing alongside the crew here. Best of luck this weekend, everybody. Hop below in the comments and let us know who you're eyeing to bet tonight. Maybe some series prices as well. Best of luck in NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs. We got info around the clock for you to bet all of those as well. So don't go anywhere, and we'll see you next time here on Wager Talk TV.